Ever feel like you're just kind of, I don't know, existing? Not really living, like you're just going through the motions. Like that spark, that real zest for life, it's like miles away.
Yeah.
You're not alone,
Yeah.
not even close.
Not at all.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today, this feeling a lot of us are struggling with. It's called languishing.
Right.
And our guide for this deep dive is Dr. Corey Keyes in his book, Languishing. So tell me, we hear so much about mental illness, right? But what about that space in between?
Exactly.
Where you're not like totally struggling, but you're definitely not thriving either.
It's fascinating, right? We talk about mental illness, but it's like this whole in-between area gets ignored.
Totally. And that's where this idea of languishing fits in, right?
Yeah.
Keyes defines it as this absence of well-being,
Yeah.
but not just clinically, right?
Right.
It's about like really thriving emotionally, psychologically, socially. Like imagine a plant that's not dead, but is not exactly, flourishing either.
Yeah.
It's just sort of there.
Right. It's just existing.
Existing, exactly. And the thing is, it's more common than we might think.
Oh, absolutely.
Keyes found that a whopping 62% of college students, those bright young minds, they don't meet the criteria for flourishing. 62%,
That's a lot.
it's a staggering statistic, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it really highlights how widespread this experience is.
Yeah, and it's not just a young people thing, right?
No, not at all. Keyes is really clear about that. Languishing, it can show up throughout our lives,
Yeah.
different ages, different ways. He uses the example of Paul, this teenager struggling to fit in, dealing with that social isolation. Think about the pressure these kids are under, some even resorting to drastic measures, like Paul buying a fake gun just to try and fit in.
Oh, wow. That's just heartbreaking. And then you add in social media on top of all that. Absolutely. It's a whole other layer of complexity. Like with Turl, the college student Keyes talks about. He gets sucked into this intense YouTube phase. Days just disappear, lost in this world of content. He feels guilty about it, but he can't seem to break free. Not depressed, but definitely not thriving either. And I bet a lot of us listening have felt that pull, that endless scroll.
Oh, totally. It's like being stuck in this digital vortex, even when you know you should be doing something else.
Exactly. And these feelings, this emptiness, the lack of direction, it doesn't just magically disappear as we get older. Remember that email Keyes shared from Andrea talking about feeling stuck in a pandemic state of mind?
Yeah.
Even though things were, supposedly back to normal. That's languishing, impacting adults, careers, everything.
It's like this undercurrent, right? This feeling of blah that just kind of follows us around.
Yeah, exactly.
So we painted a pretty clear picture of languishing here. But what's at the root of it all? What's going on here? Why are so many people struggling to actually thrive?
Well, Keyes points to this decline in warm, trusting relationships as a major factor. He even compares it to like a public health epidemic. It's a big deal.
Well,
And think about it, even before the pandemic hit, people were already spending more and more time alone.
it's like we're becoming more and more disconnected, even with all this technology that's supposed to be connecting us.
It's ironic, isn't it? And this loneliness, it's not just an emotional state either. It has a real physical impact on our brains. Get this. Loneliness triggers the same areas of the brain that process physical pain. It makes us hypersensitive to rejection, like on a physical level.
So feeling alone literally hurts.
In a sense, it does, which might explain why it's so hard to break free from.
Wow. So it's like this vicious cycle, right?
Exactly.
The more disconnected we feel, the harder it is to reach out, to build those connections that could help us heal.
It's a real challenge. And then you add social media into the mix, which, like we said, can be both a blessing and a curse, It's like that anecdote Keyes shares about that 30th birthday party, remember?
So, yeah.
The one that basically turned into this big influencer photo shoot.
Right, like everyone's so busy trying to capture that perfect Instagrammable moment that they forget to actually, enjoy the party.
Exactly. And it's like, are we really connecting if we're so focused on creating this curated version of ourselves?
It's like we're all performing instead of actually connecting. So we've talked a lot about the problem here, the pervasiveness of languishing. But what can we actually do about it? Like, how do we shift from just existing to, actually flourishing?
Well, Keyes gives us a framework, a sort of roadmap. He calls them the 5 vitamins of flourishing.
Okay, love it. Hit me with these vitamins.
All right, so not the kind you find in a store, obviously. But think of them as these 5 key areas of life that when we nurture them, they actually act as antidotes to this languishing feeling.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
All right, so the first vitamin, connection.
Makes sense.
It's about fostering those warm, trusting relationships that are so essential for our well-being.
Connection. Check.
Yeah.
It's like you were reading my mind with that one. What's next?
Next, we have learning and growth. This is all about cultivating that sense of progress, right? Embracing that idea of being a lifelong learner.
Never stop exploring, never stop growing. I like it.
Yeah.
What else? Give me more vitamins.
All right, vitamin number 3, purpose. But not just in, like, the traditional career sense, you know?
Right.
It's about finding that deeper sense of meaning through contributing, through really engaging with something you care about.
Purpose. Okay, that one hits home. What's next?
Okay, so this one might surprise you. It's play.
Play.
Yeah, like rediscovering that joy of just having fun, you know, unstructured time, leisure activities. It's crucial.
Play. I think as adults, we forget about that one sometimes.
All the
We
time.
get so caught up in like work and responsibilities that we forget to just like let loose.
Exactly.
Look fun.
Exactly. And then last but not least, the 5th vitamin, spirituality or transcendence. And this doesn't have to be about religion or anything like that. It's more about connecting to something bigger than ourselves, you know?
Yeah.
Cultivating that sense of awe, of wonder.
Yeah. Like finding that sense of peace, that connection to something beyond just the day-to-day.
Exactly. It could be spending time in nature or meditating, maybe listening to music that really moves you, practicing gratitude, anything that helps you tap into that feeling.
I love how these vitamins, they're also different, but they like touch on all these different parts of life. It's like this holistic approach, right?
Exactly. It's about nurturing the whole person.
But I have to admit, thinking about tackling all 5 of these at once,
Yeah.
it feels a little overwhelming.
Of course. And you don't have to, you know? It's not about that.
Right.
It's not about doing it all perfectly. It's about starting small, you know?
Yeah.
Pick one area where you feel like you could use some growth and then just start making intentional choices that support that.
So it's a journey, not a race.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like any good journey, there will be detours, you know?
Right.
Roadblocks, maybe even a wrong turn or two. But that's okay. The important thing is to just keep moving forward, even if it's just one little step at a time.
Okay, I'm ready to dive a little deeper into each of these vitamins. Where should we start?
Let's start with connection, since that's kind of the foundation for everything else.
Yeah,
shall we?
let's talk connection. Connection. Such a simple word, right?
It is.
But man, it's amazing how powerful it really is.
It's essential.
That feeling of like being seen, understood, supported. It's like this shield against the craziness of life.
It really is like a buffer against stress. Gives us that resilience we were talking about, you know?
Totally. But in a world that's all about like go, 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 achieve, 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 how do we actually nurture these connections? Like where do we even find the time?
That's the thing, right? It takes effort, intention. You got to ask yourself, what kind of energy am I putting out there?
Oh, interesting.
Like, are you open, approachable, willing to be vulnerable? Because that's how real connection happens. You got to let people in.
It's like creating that space, right? Where people feel safe enough to connect authentically.
Exactly.
It reminds me of that story Keys told about the woman from Greenwich and the woman from Elizabeth. 2 totally different worlds.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And yet they find this common ground, their shared love of music, that little dive bar they both ended up at.
It just goes to show you, you never know where you're going to find connection, right?
You really don't.
Mm.
And often it's with people we might least expect, people who are different from us, who challenge our perspectives.
And that's a good thing, right? These diverse connections, they not only open our minds, but like they enrich our lives in ways we couldn't even imagine.
100%. Speaking of expanding horizons, let's talk about learning and growth, that second vitamin. I gotta say, I'm a bit of a learning junkie myself.
As you should be. That thirst for knowledge, that drive to keep growing, that's what keeps life interesting.
Totally. But it's so easy to fall into that rut, you know?
Yeah.
Tell ourselves, oh, I'm too busy or I'm too old to learn something new.
It's so easy to get stuck. But again, it comes back to intentionality, you know?
Right.
Start small.
Mm.
Is there a skill you've always wanted to try? Some topic you're curious about? Carve out even just a few minutes each day to explore it.
You know what? It's funny you should mention that. I actually just started taking a pottery class last week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know, right? I've always loved the idea of working with clay, but I always had some excuse, too busy, not the right time. But now I'm like, why not?
And how are you liking it?
It's amazing. It's like this little pocket of joy in my week. And honestly, even though I'm a total beginner, like starting from scratch, the process of learning something new, it's so invigorating.
That's what it's all about, embracing that beginner's mindset, being okay with making mistakes, with not being good at something right away.
Yeah,
Those setbacks, those are learning opportunities.
totally. It's about the journey, not the destination, right?
Exactly.
And speaking of journeys, let's talk purpose. That third vitamin, it feels like there's this pressure in our culture to find our one true calling, you know?
Oh, big time. Like we're all supposed to have this grand plan figured out.
Right.
But what if it's not about finding our purpose, but creating it?
Ooh, I like that. It's about aligning our actions with our values, right?
Right.
Making choices that feel meaningful.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be some big dramatic thing either. It's not always about a career change
Yeah.
or, some huge life overhaul.
Right, right.
Remember that story about Key's former student? The one who chose to work for a nonprofit, even though she had all these amazing job offers from these big time firms?
Yeah, she was amazing. Chose to make a difference over, like, chasing a bigger paycheck.
Exactly. Because sometimes true fulfillment comes from contributing to something bigger than ourselves, whether it's our community, a cause we're passionate about, or even just showing up for the people we love. Those little things matter.
They really do. And, sometimes it's also about giving ourselves permission to just, like, be present. Find joy in the everyday moments.
Which brings us to our next vitamin play. It feels almost counterintuitive, doesn't it? To prioritize play as adults. Right. In our culture, it's all about hustle, productivity.
Hmm.
Play almost feels like frivolous,
Right.
but it's not. It's essential. It lets us tap into that childlike sense of wonder,
Yeah.
Lets us be spontaneous, do things just for the pure joy of it.
One thing that's helped me is just incorporating more movement into my day, not for any other reason than it feels good to move my body.
There you go. That's play, whether it's dancing in your living room, going for a walk, trying a new sport. Just find what makes you feel good.
Yes, rediscovering those things that light us up. Okay, last but not least, that final vitamin, spirituality or transcendence. This one can feel a little, I don't know, abstract, right?
It can, but it doesn't have to be about organized religion or anything like that. It's more about tapping into something bigger than ourselves, cultivating a sense of awe, of wonder.
Like finding that sense of peace, that connection to something beyond the everyday.
Exactly. Spending time in nature, meditation, music, whatever helps you get there.
Remember that story Keys shared about the surgeon who started meditating before surgeries?
Oh, yeah.
Not only did it calm her nerves,
Yeah.
but she said it actually made her a better surgeon, more focused, more present.
Isn't that wild? It's like tapping into that inner peace can have this ripple effect on every other part of our lives.
Totally. And, it just highlights how these 5 vitamins, even though we've been talking about them individually, they're all connected. They work together to create this life that's not just about getting by, but truly thriving.
It's like weaving a tapestry, Each vitamin adding its own unique thread, its own color to create this beautiful, intricate whole.
I love that analogy. And ultimately, you're the artist of your own life, right?
You got it. You choose what threads you want to emphasize, which colors you want to blend.
Yeah.
You get to decide how you want your tapestry to unfold.
It's not about being perfect. It's about figuring out what works for you, what brings you joy, what makes you feel truly alive, and giving ourselves permission to explore those things.
And to be kind to ourselves along the way. Because flourishing, it's not a destination, It's a journey. There will be bumps in the road.
Absolutely.
Setbacks, challenges, times when you might feel like you're taking a few steps back. But the important thing is to keep moving forward, even if it's just one small step at a time. And to remember, you don't have to do it alone. Lean on your people, Connect with those who inspire you and celebrate your wins along the way.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Well, I don't know about you, but I am feeling incredibly inspired to go out and create some flourishing in my own life, starting with like a pottery date and maybe a little nature walk.
Sounds like a plan. It's been great diving into all this with you.
And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into languishing and flourishing. Remember, even the smallest changes can have a ripple effect. So tell me, what small step will you take today to invite a little more flourishing into your life?